Hi, this is Krista at the Secret Yarnery. It is Party Cardi time! Party Cardi! Who doesn't love a good Party Cardi? Love a Party Cardi. So why this is such a great pattern? Well, it's just as easy as making a traditional granny square. All you are is working into the spaces. So you can use a textured yarn. You never have to find a space. We join, where are we joining? Up here by just doing a chain and a slip stitch. So there's no sewing with a needle except for your ends. So you can use a textured yarn, and all the shaping is just natural. We start here and work out. You can make this exactly the right size for you. It doesn't matter what size you are. We start by making the sleeve the right size for you, and we use a piece of your clothing, a t-shirt, sweater, or long sleeve shirt to judge how big to make your sleeves. Then we do the back. So from the center of your back to your underarm. That's the second custom measurement that we do. And then the third is from your underarm across your chest, a bit more than halfway. So we can totally make it any size for you. So there is nothing tricky about it. And it is so fun and fabulous. It works up so quick. I used 9 balls of this color twist yarn. And it has a cute little hood. For those cozy days. So let's get started. I am going to be using this color twist yarn from Ice Yarns. It is a size 4 medium weight, 50 grams, 150 meters, 82% acrylic, 10% polyester, and 8% polyamide. There will be a link to this in the description box below. These are really inexpensive from Ice Yarns. If you are going to be buying some, don't forget to click on the affiliate link in the description box below, and a small percentage of your purchase will go towards the Secret Yarnery. I'm also using a 6mm hook, and you'll need some stitch markers. Eventually, you will need some scissors and a darning needle at the end. I just keep my ball in a basket and put it on the ground so it doesn't roll around all over the place. And we're going to begin by making a slip knot. We want to leave a little bit of a tail, not too much, but not too little. And with this yarn, because it does go from thick to thin, you want to do your slip knot in a spot where it is generally thin. You don't want to do it, you don't want to have to pull a big chunk through your slip knot. So just find a little spot and do a nice little gentle slip knot. You don't have to pull it very tight. We can do that after, so just loose because of the textured yarn. Put it on your hook and shrink it down, and now you can make this tighter. So that is your slip knot. Chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. So here are your V's. You don't count the knot and you don't count what is on your hook. So there's a V here. So there's 1, 2, and 3. We're just going to go into the first V down here. It doesn't matter if you get 1 or 2 of the loops on your hook. So just push your hook in. Lay your tail along the side of your work, and you want to wiggle your finger in the middle of that U shape. Make a U and get your finger in there. We want to hold that open with our finger. So grab your yarn and bring it through both loops. So that is a slip stitch, and I'm still holding the center of that ring open. Chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. That counts as your first double crochet. Wrap your yarn and go right into where you're holding it open with your finger. Push your hook into the center of that ring. Grab your yarn and bring it back. Wrap your yarn and take off 2. Wrap your yarn and take off 2. So that was your first double crochet, and our chain also counts as a double crochet, so that counts as 2. And one more double crochet, so wrap your yarn, go into the center of the ring, grab your yarn and bring it back, wrap your yarn and take off 2, wrap your yarn and take off 2. So that counts as our first set of 3 double crochets, and in this pattern we'll be making these sets of 3 double crochets the whole way. I'm holding my tail around my ring just in the same spot so I can work over it. So now chain 2, 1 and 2, wrap your yarn, go into the center of the ring, grab your yarn and bring it back, wrap your yarn and take off 2, wrap your yarn, and take off 2. So now let's do 2 more of those in the same spot. So there's another set of 3 double crochets. Chain 2 for our corner, 1 and 2. Wrap your yarn and back into the center of that ring for 3 more double crochets. Now you can count your stitches. We need 6 sets of 3 double crochets, and we have 1, 2, and 3. So I'm just going to grab my work where I did my chain on that ring and pull my stitches back and slide more of that ring out, because we want to be working straight on top of that ring. So just pull your ring out and slide your stitches back. So now we have 1, 2, and 3 sets of double crochets made. So chain 2 for your corner, 1 and 2. Wrap your yarn and go into the center of that ring. Grab your yarn and bring it back. Wrap your yarn and take off 2, wrap your yarn and take off 2. So we need to do 2 more double crochets for that set. There's number 2. Here is number 3. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Chain 2 for your corner. Slide your stitches back again, so just pull that ring out. Wrap your yarn and 3 more double crochets into the center of the ring. Chain 2 for your corner, 1 and 2. And again, pull your stitches back. You want to be working onto that ring. And you can count, you just wiggle your fingers into your chain 2 spaces, and you can see how many shells you have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we need to make 1 more set of 3 double crochets into the center of that ring. So wrap your yarn and go into the ring and make 3 double crochets. If I'm going too fast, just pause the video and get caught up and then press play again. There we go. So there's our 6 sides of our hexagon, or hexie. So you can just make sure you have 3. So just count your sets of 3. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 that we just finished. So now we're going to join. We're going to join to the top of the chain 3. So to join, we're going to chain 1 and single crochet to join. So your chain here is it's hard to see, it's quite messy. So the way to do it is isolate your double crochets. So there's 1, 2, and here is your chain. So there's 1 top of a double crochet, the second top of a double crochet, and here is the third. So that is the top of the chain 3. It's just the first chain right after your doubles, or the third chain up if that's easier to count, but it's just right there. So push your hook into the top of that chain. You want 2 strands of that stitch onto your hook. Grab your yarn and bring it through. Wrap your yarn and take off 2. So that is a single crochet. And now wiggle your finger into that corner space. So you want 3 double crochets on one side and 3 double crochets on the other side. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and turn your work. Now into this same corner spot, make sure you still have your 3 double crochets on each side. Wrap your yarn and make 2 double crochets. Your chain 3 counts as your first double crochet, so this counts as 3, just like that. And now into this spot, into the same corner space, take a stitch marker and just pop it right into that corner space. That's just going to tell us where we need to do our join as we're working our way around. And if you manage to work over your tail, you can cut your tail off now, so that will stay out of your way. If you didn't work over it, you can work it in with a needle or just leave it for now. So we did our 3 double crochets, or a chain 3 and 2 double crochets. So now wrap your yarn and jump straight over to the next corner space to make a corner. So make 3 double crochets into the corner space. 1, 2, and 3. Chain 2, 1 and 2. Wrap your yarn and 3 more double crochets into the same corner space. 1, 2, and 3. So there's our corner, 3 double crochets, a chain 2, and 3 double crochets. Wrap your yarn straight into the next corner space. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to do that into each corner going all the way around. 3 double crochets, a chain 2, and 3 double crochets. So there's my 3 double crochets, chain 2, wrap your yarn, and 3 more double crochets into the same space. 1, 2, and 3. Into the next corner space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. Chain 2, 1 and 2. Wrap your yarn and 3 more double crochets into that same space. 1, 2, and 3. So every corner gets a corner all the way around. Here's our next one, our chain 2 spot, and every chain 2 spot is a corner. So 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. 3 double crochets. Here's our chain 2, and 3 more double crochets into the same corner space. 1, 2, and 3. So this is going to be a hexagon. We're going to have 6 corners. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and here is 6. So into the last corner, we'll make a corner, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. There's 3 double crochets, chain 2, wrap your yarn, and 3 more double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Now where we have our stitch marker, this is our last corner. So in our corner we did our join and our step up of 3 chains and our 2 double crochets, so that counts as 3 double crochets. So into the same spot where our stitch marker is, we need to put 3 more double crochets to finish off that corner. So there's 1, 2, and 3. We can take that stitch marker out for now. So chain 1. So now go into the 3rd stitch. So there's 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, and over here is our 3rd. So that's the 3rd stitch over, or the 3rd stitch up, whatever's easier for you to find. Push your hook in. You want 2 strands of that stitch on your hook. Grab your yarn and bring it back, wrap your yarn, and take off 2. So that finishes round 2, and we make sure you have your 6 corners, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. If it's hard for you to see or you're just starting out, you can put a stitch marker in each of your corners if you're going to have a hard time seeing them. I just put one into this corner spot where I'm going to be working, but first I'm going to do my chaining and turning. So chain 3, 1, 2, and 3, and turn your work. We want to turn our work so our pattern will match once we get farther on. We're going to have to turn our work to finish off our cardigan, so we want to start by turning our work now. So into the same corner spot, 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, and now into the corner space, put your stitch marker back. So I put that right into the corner space. Where at the same spot I made my double crochets, I put in the stitch marker. That's just going to tell us that's where we have to finish our corner when we work our way around. So now if you wiggle your fingers in, you will feel after every 3 double crochets there is a space. So we want to work into the spaces on this pattern. So wrap your yarn and into the next space. It's along this flat side right there. We are going to do 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And into your corner, so 3 double crochets, a chain 2, and 3 double crochets right into the center space. We're going to do the same thing. So 3 double crochets, 1, 2, and 3. A chain 2, 1 and 2, and 3 more double crochets into the same corner space. 1, 2, and 3. Into the space along the side, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Into the corner, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. So this row is exactly the same as the row below, other than we're also building a shell into the side. So there's our 3 double crochets into our corner space, chain 2, and 3 more double crochets into the same space. 1, 2, and 3. Now there's a space along the side, 3 double crochets, 1, 2, and 3. And the next one is a corner. You can see it's a corner because there's all these stitches going into the same spot from the row below. So we're going to do the exact same thing. Corners always get corners. So 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. There's my chain 2. Into the same space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. Along the side, 3 double crochets into the side space. 1, 2, 3. And into the corner, we do a corner, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. Side space, 3 double crochets. Corner space, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. Side spot, 3 double crochets. And where our stitch marker is, that's where we're going to finish off our corner. So that gets 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. We can take our stitch marker out. And we're going to join in the same way. So chain 1 and single crochet to the top of the chain 3. So there's 1, 2, those are our 2 double crochets. So it's this next stitch right there. So if you pull it over, you can see how that pulls up that chain 3. That is what we want. So we did our chain 1. Push your hook in to the top of the chain 3. 2 strands of that stitch on your hook. Grab your yarn and bring it back, wrap your yarn and take off 2. So now chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. Turn your work. We can put a stitch marker back in that same corner space. We want to remember where we're going to slow down. And now we're going to do the same thing along this side, except each row that we keep going on, we get more side spaces. So for this side, we start with our 2 double crochets, 1 and 2. Wrap your yarn into the next space, 3 double crochets, 1, 2, and 3. Into the next space, 3 double crochets, 1, 2, and 3. And you'll do that for as many spaces along the sides as you have. Each space gets 3 double crochets. And now each corner gets a corner. So corners, 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. Side spots, 3 double crochets into each. Another corner, and keep going like that all the way around, and I'll meet you at the join. As you work around, you'll find that your work is not laying flat. It's being all weird, and you'll think you've done something wrong, but you haven't. We're not making anything flat, we're making this funny shape. So if we fold it in half, we get like an L shape, something like that, and that is what we want. So if it's not laying flat and you have all these extra stitches, you're doing it right, so don't panic. I've done my 3 double crochets into the same stitch as my stitch marker, so we're ready to join. So chain 1. You can tell if you've chained 1. If you haven't, you'll have 2 loops of yarn underneath your hook, and if you have, you'll only have 1 loop of yarn underneath your hook. So that's how you know if you've done your chain or not. And now find the top of your chain 3 or your third stitch over. So there's 1, 2, and then over here would be the third. And you want to push your hook into that top of the chain 3 with 2 loops of that stitch onto your hook. Grab your yarn and bring it back. Wrap your yarn and take off 2. So there is a single crochet to join. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Oh, turn your work. And now put a little stitch marker in there, like that, just so we know where to slow down when we're coming around. And now keep going. So we're gonna start with a chain 3 and 2 double crochets, and then 3 double crochets into these spaces along the side. However many there are is how many you're gonna do. Just every single time that there is a space, they always get 3 double crochets. Into the corners, you're always gonna do 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. So continue doing that all the way around. Like this one. This is 1 ball of yarn, 50 grams. I can cut off my tail actually, because I worked over it. Now I would estimate that this would be 12 inches square. That's an overestimate. You will get a little more distance from your yarn. See, that is 12 inches right there. Plus we have this little bit of extra, fabric or textile. Let's just estimate 12 square inches or 1 square foot per 50-gram ball of yarn. So that'll just give you an estimate for how many balls of yarn you need for your body, your shape, your size. So I'm pretty sure my hexagon is as big as I need it to be for my sleeves. So I have my yarn still attached, and just fold it in half on one side and along with the other side, and it'll fold into this nice little L shape. So this will be your half of your body, and this will be one of your arms. So then grab a shirt or a sweater or something, a piece of your clothing, just so you can judge how much material you're going to need for your shoulder area, and line it up along the underarm area, and along the top you'll see that it is bigger. You do want it to be bigger than your clothing because it'll be a sweater over top. Or if you're using a sweater as your pattern here, like instead of my t-shirt you're using a sweater, you could have them exactly the same. But because my shirt I'm using a shirt, I'm going to make it about 1 inch taller than, or 1 inch bigger than my sleeve on my shirt. So just use your own clothing as a general rule of thumb. So that is how you tell. when you're ready to stop. And now go ahead and start a second hexagon. We want 2 like this, and just leave your yarn attached if you can. These balls are 50 grams, so I am on my second ball for this hexagon. So I'm just going to leave this ball attached with my stitch marker and go ahead and make my second one. So now I have 2 hexagons. And I'm ready to keep going. I like to just do everything, the pair at the same stage instead of finishing one and then starting the second. It's easier to measure that they're the exact same number of rows. To count your rows, I open it up and I'm going to count along this side here. So there's a shell here, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So I'm just counting one side going up this corner line. Where's my ruler? So just from the center, which is here, I'm counting these ones right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So we want to make our second one with the exact same number of rows. So now we're going to keep going, building rows along this side to match the width of half of our torso. So we're just going to add a few rows so that it is longer on this back panel and longer on the front panel. So now in this corner, we joined the same way with a chain 1 and a single crochet. So really check to make sure you're in the middle. You want to find your 3 double crochets on each side. It can be easy to just make a new corner over here with 2 double crochets on one side and 4 double crochets on the other. So just make sure that you're in the center. And chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and into the same corner spot, we're going to do 2 double crochets. So this is the same as before. We're not doing anything new. And 3 into each space, going all the way along this side. So nothing changes until the end of the row. So just scoot along, pause the video and scoot along doing your 3 double crochets into each of these spaces, and I'll meet you at the end of this row. Also put a stitch marker into that corner space on the row below where we started, and also a stitch marker on this side. So both sides will have a stitch marker, just so it's easier to count later. If you don't have a stitch marker, you can count it later. It's not a big deal, but it's easier to see where you started going back and forth if you just throw a stitch marker in now. You can even use a paper clip or a scrap of yarn. When we reach our corner, we're going to put in the same shell as we always do, so 3 double crochets into that corner space, like that, and chain 3, 1, 2, 3, turn your work. So flip it over. We're going to be working back along this side, just back and forth. So this row starts with a chain 3 and our first shell into the first space. So we'll do that. 1, 2, and 3 double crochets. And now 3 double crochets into each space all the way around, all the way along until we reach the end of this row. So pause the video and work along this side, 3 double crochets into each space, and I'll meet you at the end of the row. Into our last space, 3 double crochets. And now into the top of our chain 3, we're going to do 1 double crochet. So this again is a bit tricky to see. But if you wiggle your fingers in between your stitches, you can see there's 1 double crochet and the next double crochet, and then over on this side we're going to go into that stitch, into that top of the chain 3. So wrap your yarn, go into the top of that chain 3, and make 1 double crochet like that. So this row begins with a space and ends with a space. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3. My rooster is very loud. And it's also helpful because we put our stitch markers. We know that we're working in between these two. So we don't want to start making any other side bigger, just this one where we're working from our stitch marker and towards our stitch marker, just along this side. He's loud. So this row is starts with a chain 3 and 2 double crochets into the corner space, like that. And now 3 double crochets into each space, going all the way along, and ending with 3 double crochets into the last space. So pause the video and keep going. I'll meet you over at the end of this row. Into the space at the very end of the row, we're going to do 3 double crochets. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Turn our work and work back along to the other side with a stitch marker. So from one stitch marker side to the other stitch marker side, just working along. And because we ended on a shell in the row below, we're going to skip over and start in the next available space for 3 double crochets. So work all the way along and I'll meet you at the end of this row. I worked into the last space, so this one we end with a double crochet just into the top of that chain. If you wiggle out your chain, if you just kind of pull on it, just push your hook into the top. You want to make sure you're going into the chain, not into the space, and make 1 double crochet. So that ends with our space, chain 3, turn your work, and now keep working back and forth along this side until it is. So fold it up nicely again. You can see the ring here. That's going to be our underarm, the center of our underarm. So always line it up to that. If it's off, you'll see that this circle, this circle has to get folded in half. So make sure that is in the center, underarm area. And now keep working on this back panel until it is half the width of your body. Side note. Pattern, rethink, redesign, save yourself. The back ones, when you're working on the back panels, make those 2 rows longer minimum than the front panels. So these ones, they overlap. These ones are 8 extra rows and the back ones are only 6 extra rows. So that's what I did for mine. If you're chestier than I am, which I hope you are, then you can even put more rows on the front. Just kind of like try it on from the side, like hold it onto your underarm and pull it across until it's a little more than halfway across your body. I hope that helps. How I do it, I hold this panel up against my body, keeping this in my underarm, and I fold it across the front of my body, or hold it across the front, and I keep going until this reaches the center line, or the center of my body, going this way. So this is where you customize it for your body. So keep going until it's the right size for you or the person you're making it for. Now how to count your rows when you think you're finished is we put our stitch marker into the corner below, our last original corner of 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. And on top of our stitch marker are our rows going back and forth. We can just count these blocks. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I did 8 rows along this side, and we want to end, you want to do an even number because we want to end with a chain, with a double crochet or our chain 3, because we want to have the space on the edge of our work like we always would. So we want to end on an even row or do an even number of rows. So I have finished, so that's my last shell. I'm just going to do my double crochet into the top of that chain 3 a little double crochet, and chain 1. And now we're going to cut your yarn. Leave a long enough tail to sew in. We don't want to be wrestling with yarn later. And pull your hook up and your yarn through. Oops. There we go, and snug that down. Now we can fold it all up again. Remember to keep the ring in your underarm area, like that. Get 2 more stitch markers, and then pop 2 stitch markers into these corners, 1 into each corner, like that. So we have 2 stitch markers in there. And now we're going to attach our yarn. And I'm going to be working into the back side because we turned our work each round. You can tell it's the back side because there's no pretty line of V's going along the top. The pretty side has a little row of pretty V's. So we don't want to be seeing any of those V's. We'll put the V's facing down. So grab your yarn and grab your hook. Put your hook into that corner space. Loop of yarn on your hook. Bring it through and slip stitch with both strands to join. Now you can work with both strands for a while if you'd like, or you can drop your tail. I will just drop my tail and chain 2, 1 and 2. I'm holding my tail along my work. I'm just going to work over it a little bit, and 2 double crochets into that space, 1 and 2, working over my tail, a smudge, and now we're going to do the exact same thing, working along this side of our work, ending with our 3 double crochets and alternating our rows all the way up. And we're going to do the same number of rows on this side as we did on the other side. So I did 8 before, so I'll do 8 rows here. So pause the video and I'll meet you back when these 2 sides are matching. I put 8 rows here, here, and these 2 here. So those are longer, and our sleeves are sleeve size. And my yarn is still attached onto where I just finished. So line up your panels so they're folded nicely, and one's going to be the front and one's going to be the back. The one that I'm looking at now, I'm going to turn into the back. I'm going to join along this panel here. So just kind of pinch them together like so, and shake it out. So there's just this one panel here, and my working yarn, there we go. So this is where I finished off my side. I'm just going to slip stitch into this other side. I want them to be joined. So put your hook into the space of the panel we're joining and just do a slip stitch like that. So that gets both panels together in the corner. Chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. Now wiggle your fingers to find the next space on both of the panels, the one under and the one above. Get your finger in there so you know where you're going to be going into. And slip stitch. So just like that. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Find the next space on both panels. Put your hook in so you have both panels on your hook, and grab your yarn, bring it back, turn your hook and bring it through. So there's a slip stitch. Chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. Find the next space. Put your hook into the first panel, the second panel, bring your yarn through, turn your hook, and slip stitch to join. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Find the next space. Put your hook in to both panels or through both panels. Grab your yarn and bring it back and slip stitch to join. Chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. And do the same thing into each space going all the way along this one side. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Slip stitch. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3. into both, slip stitch. And now this is the last, this is the corner. So just the same thing, we did our chain 3 into both corners, the corner of the top, the corner of the bottom, and slip stitch to join. Chain 1 to secure your yarn and just pull your yarn through. Snug it down to secure and cut your yarn. Or cut your yarn and snug it down. So now this is the inside of our back. And if you open it up and smooth it, you can see our join. It just lays down nice and flat, and there's just one little slip stitch joining them together. So it looks, I find it's the most natural looking join for this pattern. You're welcome to join any which way that you want to, but I like doing it this way. And there is our join along our back panel. Looks great. So we'll flip this. What you want to make sure, this is now the outside. So now we have a good side and a bad side because we have our chain spaces or our chains. So the chains are now the inside of our work. So we're going to keep the pretty side facing in because we also have to do our shoulders. So now fold it back together and back together like that. So make sure that your chains stay on the outside because we're going to be doing more chains now on the outside. And we'll start on this sleeve over here. So we'll find our corner of both of those sides, and we're just going to do the same chaining along the sleeve and up to the neckline, leaving a little bit open for our necks. So what you might want to do is just pin those two corners together so you know where you're starting. And trace them back up. I'm leaving 4 rows, 1, 2, 3, 4, open at the center. That'll be for our neck. So I'm going to put a stitch marker in the space just there to mark where I'm going to stop, and I'll do the same on the other sleeve while I have it all nice and folded up. And we'll find the center, line those up. So this will be the opening for our neck. And just to pin those other corners together at the end of our sleeve, just so we know where we're going. And the rest of our stitch markers we can take out now because we are finished with keeping track of everything except our joining. So we'll start on one sleeve. Put your hook in so you have both corner spaces on your hook. Loop of yarn on your hook. Bring it through and slip stitch with both to join. Because this is a chain, I'm just going to chain with both strands. 1, 2, and 3. Now I'll drop my tail and into the next space, slip stitch to join. 1, 2, 3. Into the space, slip stitch. So now keep going like this, chain 3 and slip stitch into the space on both panels, and I'll meet you when we get up to our other stitch marker. So the chain 3, slip stitch into the last space before our neck, chain 1 to secure your yarn, and now cut your yarn and pull your hook up and your yarn through. And now spin your work around. We're going to start on the other sleeve. So this is how it is now. It has a little overlap in the front, shorter in the back. So I did 8 rows for the front panels and 6 rows for the back panels, 6 extra rows. So now we'll start by putting on a little hood. So to do that, find a corner, put your hook in, loop of yarn on your hook, slip stitch with both to join, drop your tail, chain 2, 1 and 2, so that counts as a chain 3, And now into the same spot, 2 double crochets. We're just going to work back and forth. We're going to turn this collar into a row. So there's our 2 double crochets. That counts as a 3. Now we jump straight over into the next space. So jumping over, let me move this out of the way. Jumping over into the next space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Jump to the next space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Into the next space, just right there, there's kind of 2 close together, that's fine. 3 double crochets. Jump to the next space, 3 double crochets. So every space going around this collar has 3 double crochets in it. The next space is right after our join. So 3 double crochets, 1, 2, 3. The next space, 3 double crochets. And that's our shoulder join. Into the next space, 3 double crochets. Jumping to the next, 3 double crochets. And into the last space, 3 double crochets. So that is the start of our hood. And what we want to do now is also get your stitch markers ready again. We want to mark where our join is. So there's the join for our center back. And here is the join from our shoulder. And here is the join from our other shoulder. So there's 3 spots, and into those 3 spots on the next row we're going to do some increases because we want our hood to be big enough to go around our head. It's a bit small right now. So we're going to do the edge the same as we did for going back and forth along our panels. So chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. Turn your work. Into the next space, 3 double crochets, 1, 2, and 3. Jump to the next, 3 double crochets, 1, 2, and 3. And now into the next space, we're going to do 2 shells. So we're going to do 6 into the next space. So 3 double crochets, 1, 2, and 3. We'll do a chain 1 just to give us a little space in between them, and 3 more double crochets into that same space. 1, 2, and 3. So that shell looks like that. There's 6 into that spot just to give us some more distance working our way around. Into the next space, 3 double crochets, 1, 2, and 3. And now into the next spot, we're going to do our 3 double crochets, chain 1, and 3 double crochets. So there's 1, 2, 3, chain 1, and 1, 2, and 3. So that is just in the very center of our back to make it a little bigger. Into the next space, just 3 double crochets. And then into our stitch marker spot, we'll do 6. So 3 double crochets, chain 1, and 3 double crochets. So there's our 6 with our chain 1 into that spot. Jumping into the next space, 3 double crochets, and into the next space, 3 double crochets. And then we end with 1 double crochet into that chain. So push your hook into that chain, 2 loops on your hook, double crochet, chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Turn your work. Now our hood is getting to be that big, so it's getting bigger. Into this very first space, 2 double crochets, 1 and 2. Jump to the next space, 3 double crochets. The next, 1, 2, and 3. And into that chain 1 space, 3 double crochets. Into the space, 3 double crochets. Into the space, 3 double crochets. And into the center of that 6, into the chain 1 spot, 3 double crochets. Into the space, 3 double crochets. So we're just doing 3 double crochets into every space, either a normal space or a chain 1 spot on the row below. Into our last space, 3 double crochets. And that's how big our collar is, or our hood is so far. So we still have our stitch markers here. We can take them out. So now for our next round, we're going to be making 4 increases. So get your stitch markers, and you can kind of see these lumps that we have. I'm going to put one into the valley in between. So start like we always do, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and turn your work. So jump over, 3 double crochets into the space. And where we have a stitch marker, we're going to do 3 double crochets, chain 1, and 3 double crochets. So there is our increase. 3 double crochet, chain 1, 3 double crochet. So into the regular spots, 3 double crochets. And into where our stitch markers are, we're going to do an increase. So 3 double crochets, chain 1, and 3 double crochets. There's my chain 1. So continue like that all the way along, and I'll meet you at the end. So double crochet into your chain when you're finished that row. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Turn your work. We can just take out those stitch markers. So into the very same space, 2 double crochets to start this row. And 3 double crochets into every space, including the chain 1 spaces of our increase. Every space gets 3 double crochets. I'm going to do one more row of increases, but you can increase as much as you like. You can also stop now and leave this as a super cute collar. Let me just show you how sweet it is. So that is how adorably cute it is right now. You're welcome to stop now or keep going. So just judging where we increased before, we did an increase here and here. So in the center one, I will put a stitch marker. And we increased way down here actually, didn't we? So here and here, so I'll go in between those and put a stitch marker right there. So just in between the increases of where we did it below. So there's 1 and 2 increases. So I'm going to put one into this spot here. So there's 3 increases. So now work your way along, making 3 double crochets into each space. Where your stitch markers are, do your increases of 3 double crochets, chain 1, and 3 double crochets. Chain 3. And now turn your work. And now work your way back and along. I think that's big enough for a hood. If you need yours bigger, this row do without increases, and you're welcome to increase on the next round if you'd like. So just keep going back and forth until you have the height of hood that you'd like. So work your way along back and forth until your hood is the height you want it to be. And again, I finished on I did an even number of rows, so I finished with a space on the corner. Instead of the shell on the corner, you want to always end with the space. This is what my hood looks like now. It is 12 inches from my collar, which is a bit hard to see, but my collar's down here. So it is 12 inches up, or 12 inches tall. So now make sure, we have to check again to find out our inside and outside. So our outside does not have the chain. So this is the outside. There's no chain. Fold it this way. So our chains are on the outside. So there's our chain down here, and our chain on our sleeve is here. So that's how we want it to be lined up. And fold it in half. So this is the top of our hood. So from the top of that last stitch, I'm just going to put my hook into the same space on the other side and slip stitch to join. So just bring the yarn through and through. So that is together now. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then slip stitch into each space going back. Slip stitch, chain 3, slip stitch, chain 3, so there is my last slip stitch. Chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn. Pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down to secure. So there is the top of our hood joined together, and we kept all of our chaining on the one side. Take out any stitch markers you have left. Inside it out the right way, and of course you're welcome to try it on now. So now we're going to add yarn to the sleeves to make the sleeves longer, and we're going to add yarn to the bottom to make our entire sweater longer. So let's do the bottom of our sweater first to make it longer. So we're going to be adding yarn onto this bottom edge, going back and forth. So turn it around and find a corner. I'm just going to join into this corner down here. So put your hook into that corner space, loop of yarn on your hook, bring it through, slip stitch with both to join. If you're on a skinny part of your yarn, you are welcome to chain with both. So there's 1, 2, 3, and now I'll drop my tail at the top. And 2 more double crochets into the corner space. So now we're just going to be doing this regular style. There's nothing different about it until we get to this center join. So if you want to just put a stitch marker in right before, there's our chain where we did our joining. So just put a stitch marker in before that space. So when you're working your way along, you know when to slow down and wait for me. So into each space, 3 double crochets. And just jump over the stitches. You're just working into each of the spaces. 3 double crochets into each space. It kind of feels like you're going too far or you're not putting in enough stitches, but just don't worry about it. 3 into each space, and I'll meet you when you get to your stitch marker. So our chain is right here. This is our join. And these are the two spaces, one on each side of the join. So we're going to turn these two spots into one shell. So one set of 3 stitches, but we're going to do it a bit nicer than that. So into the first space, so the first space on the side of our join, make 1 double crochet like usual, 1 double crochet. Now start your second double crochet. So wrap your yarn, go into the same spot, grab your yarn and bring it back, wrap your yarn and take off 2. So that, and now we have 2 strands of yarn or loops still on our hook. So just leave that. So we started our double crochet, but we didn't finish it. Now wrap your yarn again, jump to the other side of the join, so this space over there, and we're going to do the same thing. Start your double crochet, so wrap your yarn and take off 2, and then you have all of those on your hook. There's 3 different loops on your hook. Wrap your yarn and finish them both together. So wrap your yarn and take off all 3 loops. So that's technically a double crochet decrease. So we did a double crochet and then 2 double crochets together. Now wrap your yarn and 1 double crochet into that last space, the same spot you were in. So it's a bit hard to see, but we did double crochet, 2 double crochets together, and 1 double crochet. So on the top you can see there's 3 stitches, a pink one, an orange one, and a yellow one. So from here on, that counts as as 3 double crochets, but looking at it, it's a bit more full because we did the 2 together. So it just kind of evens it out and helps our sweater look nice. So now just keep going like usual, 3 double crochets into each space, turn and come back. So where we did that at our join, we did that extra fancy stitch, the decrease in the center there. Just put a stitch marker right after, so you'll also remember when you're coming back, this gets a shell where your stitch marker is, and on the other side will also get a shell. So on our next row, we'll put a shell, and from there on, it's super easy, nothing else to do. So this is the last of things to remember. Now just keep going, and I'll meet you when you get back to your stitch marker. So here's our join. So there's our chain down there running down our work, and our stitch markers. So our first space, we're just going to do 3 double crochets, just regular. We just put our stitch markers there so we wouldn't be wondering what to do in the center bit. So 3 double crochets before. And jump over to our next stitch marker. And 3 double crochets into that space. So from now on, everything's going to look absolutely regular. There we go. So we've made everything look normal now. And that's the end of it. Keep going until your sweater is as long as you'd like it to be. And I'll meet you back. I've continued down. I'm on my 15th row from where I joined. You can find the join here in the center where your stitches match each other, just here. And then you can look for that first shell we made that's different, and then we just count down. On an angle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 rows. But you can just make yours as short or as long as you would like to make yours. It's absolutely customizable. So now we're going to work all the way around our sweater for a couple rows just to even everything out. So into this last corner space, or the last space on the edge, we're going to turn that into a regular corner. So 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 more double crochets into that corner space. So now we're working around our cardigan or our sweater, starting our board, giving our sweater a nice even edge to work into. So jump over, every space gets 3 double crochets. Just keep going, making 3 double crochets into every space. When you reach the top of the hood, the join at the very top of our cardigan, there's a space before and right after the join. We're just going to put 3 double crochets into each. So into the first part before the join, the space before the join, 3 double crochets. and into the spot right after the join, the space right after the join, 3 double crochets. So that's what the top of the hood looks like now. Just nice and flat and even. There is our join right in there, and there's our 2 shells. So it lays nice and flat, looks great. And keep going, and I'll meet you when we get all the way down this side to this corner. At the corner, we're going to join the same way we used to join. So chain 1 and single crochet to the top of the chain 3 to join. So just push your hook in. You want to make sure you have 2 loops of that stitch on your hook, and single crochet to join. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and turn your work. Flip it over. And now we'll work back along this side. I'm going to do 2 rows like this, just the same exact way we did right now, all the way around. So it's kind of just like one big granny square. So we start with 2 double crochets into the same corner space. You can put a stitch marker in there if you feel like it, just to keep track of where you're heading to, where you started and where you're going to finish. And now keep going all the way around. 3 double crochets into each space. There's nothing tricky anymore because we've done everything. We're working into these nice spaces the whole way around. So keep going, and I'll meet you when you get back to this spot. You're welcome to go around more than twice. You can go around 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. However many times you would like to go around is absolutely fine. But just remember to turn your work after each round so that your cardigan stays lying flat. If you don't turn, it'll start curling towards you, and it's more difficult. You'll have to block it for it to behave. So turn your work every row, and I'll meet you when you have gone around as many times as you would like for this stage of the border. When you get back to your stitch marker, just finish off that corner, 3 double crochets into the corner space like usual. We can take out our stitch marker. So we're going to join in the same way we always do. So chain 1 and then single crochet to join. So push your hook into the top of the chain 3, 2 loops of that stitch on your hook. And now I'm going to add in some eyelash yarn. So this is super soft and a bit fuzzy. It's fun, and if you put it with the yarn you're using before, it just adds a little bit of something to the last round of your sweater. If you don't have an eyelash yarn to use, you can just skip it, or you could use a white yarn. You could put maybe a metallic row, a silver row, pick one of these colors from inside that you like a lot and use that as your final edge. I'm just going to add some eyelash. So for our single crochet, I'm just going to put the strand of eyelash with my yarn and bring it through both strands. So I just did my single crochet with the 2 strands of yarn, and I've dropped my tail. Normally I would be turning my work, but because when you're working with eyelash, most of the hairs or the fuzz stay on the back side. So I'm going to be working I'm looking at the inside of my, you can see here's my seam, my chain running up here. So I'm working into the inside of my cardigan, just so most of the fuzz from the eyelash will be on the outside, which is where I'd like it to be. So now just do like regular, one more round in usual style. So chain 3 and into our corner space, 2 double crochets. It's a bit more awkward now with all that yarn, but the eyelash will fuzz out over time. Those threads will come out and it'll be a nice furry edge. So 3 double crochets into each space, same as usual. And that's all we're going to do. We don't need to put a stitch marker this time because we can see where we started the eyelash. And we can't really see our stitches anymore, so what you want to do is just wiggle your finger in between those posts, and that's how you can count your stitches. So 3 double crochets into each space. Our corners are regular, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. There's my hair, awesome. And I'll meet you back at the join. When you get back to your corner, do your 3 double crochets into that corner space to finish, And I'm going to do one more row just along the very bottom edge of the sweater. So the border along the bottom will be 2 rows and everywhere else will be 1 row. So I'm going to join in the same way I normally would. So chain 1 and single crochet to join. So just separate those double crochets in your chain with your finger, and then you could kind of just push it into that corner. Not into the space, into the stitch, but just kind of guess where you're going in and make 1 single crochet, chain 3, turn your work. Make sure you're going along the bottom edge, yes. Now, to wiggle your fingers to find that corner spot, because now we can't really see anything. So into each space along the bottom, we're going to start with 2 double crochets because our chain counts as our first double crochet. So there's 3. And wiggle your fingers into the next space to find it. 3. Wiggle your fingers to find the next one. And keep doing this all the way along the bottom edge of your sweater. Of course, you're welcome to not do this if you want your border to be the same everywhere. Mine will kind of be like that. This will be the side and this will be the bottom. So keep going like this, 3 double crochets into each space, and just find your spaces by wiggling your fingers in there to find where you need to go next. So keep going and I'll meet you at the end of this row. So I finished my second row. There's my corner left. So into my corner I will do my 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Chain 1, and now I'm going to cut my yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later, and pull my hook up and my yarn through carefully and snug that down a bit. This we'll have to sew in with a needle. And here is our sweater so far. There's the bottom. You can see it's just wider than the sides, which I like that. And the top hood is great like that. It's it's like a cloud. And this eyelash is so soft and squishy. Now all that's left, look at our little baby sleeves. We have to do our sleeves. I'll show you one sleeve and then you do the second sleeve the exact same way. Take the yarn we were using and have your sweater folded properly like this. We want to isolate this center space down here. We want to attach our yarn because we're going to be joining and working our way back and forth, so we want to have it in the underarm area. So just find that stitch down under, put your hook in, loop of yarn on your hook, bring it through, slip stitch with both to join, drop your tail and chain 2. So that counts as a chain 3. Now you can work over your tail for these 2 double crochets into the same space. That counts as our first 3. And now 3 double crochets into each space going all the way around until we reach here. You can also put a stitch marker in there if you think you might not see it. Just keep a stitch marker just so you know where it is. And keep going 3 double crochets into each space, and I'll meet you when we get back to the join. So back over at our join, this one we're just gonna slip stitch. So find that 3rd chain over, so 1, 2, 3, or 3rd stitch over and 3rd stitch up. Push your hook in, slip stitch to join, chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Turn your work into the same corner spot, 2 double crochets, 1 and 2. And now keep doing that, working all the way around, slip stitch to join, chain 3, turn, go all the way around again until your sleeve is as long as you'd like it to be. You can make your sleeve as long as you want it to be. I like to make mine as long as my either to just before my wrist, somewhere around here, because we're still going to add a border and it's also going to stretch, and or the same length as our sweater. So I am making it the same length, so I have done the same number of squares or the same number of rows, and I have 2 rows left, which I'm going to put eyelash on the bottom of my sleeve. So just count your rows. You can count them any which way, just working way along. I like to center my starting spot in the underarm and then fold it. Count the rows on your cardigan and count the rows on your sleeve. So it's the same number, and we'll just leave 2 rows left where we can put on our eyelash. So get your eyelash ready, and we're just going to attach it the same way as we did before. So I'm going to go back to my slip stitch, and I'll slip stitch with both yarn. So my regular working yarn and a loop of my eyelash. So I'm going to slip stitch with my yarn and 1 loop of my eyelash. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and turn your work. You can drop your tail now if you want to. You could have dropped it before also, it doesn't matter. That just kind of helps work it in. An eyelash can be a bit tricky. So now we're just going to keep going around 2 rows with both strands of yarn, and I'll meet you when you're finished that. When you reach the end, just guess where the top of your chain 3 is, like we have been doing. Just make sure you get into the stitch. You don't want to be going into the space. Make 1 little slip stitch and a chain 1 to secure your yarn. Now cut your yarn. We have to leave enough to sew in with a needle. Pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down. Now you want to do this exact same thing on your other sleeve and make sure it is the same length and finish it off in the same way. And then we have finished our cardigan, our Party Cardi. Our Party Cardi is finished. Yay! Who doesn't love a good Party Cardi? How fun. Wouldn't this be great to make for kids? Oh my gosh. Let's try it on. And this is what it looks like finished. Isn't it fab? I like it so much. So if you've made one, I'd love to see it. Tag me on Instagram at Secret Yarnery, or on Facebook, you can join our Facebook group, the Secret Yarnery Crochet Community. I'd love to see your yarn and your colors. I love it. Stay hooked.